What are the best examples of "he didn't know it was impossible, so he did it" in history? During graduate school, the mathematician George Dantzig famously mistook two famous unsolved math problems for homework and solved them. They became his doctoral dissertation and he ended up teaching at Stanford. After several early failures in their Mars program, the Soviet Union decided to instead focus on landing a probe on Venus, unaware at the time that Venus is a much more inhospitable environment and that a probe would have to contend with a corrosive atmosphere and searing temperatures, neither of which are present on Mars. They succeeded, and in 1970, Venera 7 became the first space probe to safely land on another planet. An Indian man named Dashrath Manji spent 22 years carving a road through a mountain with a hammer and chisel. His wife died because the nearest hospital was on the other side and the mountain made the journey too long. Everyone told him he was insane. He shortened a 55 kilometers path to 15 kilometers. By himself. With hand tools. The government didn't build a road. One angry grieving man did. Isaac Newton invented an entire mathematical discipline, calculus, to help explain why planets have elliptical orbits. I've always liked this one. GE used to mess with new employees to ask them to make a frosted light bulb which at the time was thought impossible without compromising other aspects. Cue new dude figuring out how to do it. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Marvin_Pipkin. Christopher Columbus. Reaching Asia by going west with his kind of ships was totally impossible. That there was another continent in the way was coincidence. Carl Bushby is worth a mention. Starting out from a dare at a bar, he's almost completed the Goliath expedition, to walk from Chile to the UK. This reminds me of the scene where Gilligan is flying with a set of homemade wings. Skipper tells him it's not possible, so he falls. Leila Saracolo. She lived in San Francisco when Star Trek IV was being filmed on her street. She was hired as an extra, but wasn't supposed to speak. https://www.imdb.com/name/nm647278 https://www.imdb.com/name/nm647278 but she did. She told Chekhov and Uhura that the nuclear vessels were probably in Alameda. Paramount had to hire her and get her into the Screen Actors Guild, because extras can't have speaking parts. And actors must be in the guild. And her quip was hilarious, Chekhov *, speaking urgently, with raised voice, pleading with random passerby who stops and listens *, we're looking for the naval base in Alameda, can you tell me where the nuclear vessels are, / random passerby * talking slowly and casually *, I think it's across the bay, / walks away * in Alameda, *, https://www.youtube.com/watch, v=mdsjf/hbhm, https://www.youtube.com/watch v=mdsjf/hb-hm. Ignaz Semmelweis. He didn't know why cleaning your hands in between patients helped reduce patient mortality, and he was widely mocked for advocating for radical suggestions like cleaning your hands between autopsy and delivering the baby, but by instituting those practices he significantly reduced the rate of incidence of childbed fever. He was practicing in an era where residents wore filthy white coats as a badge of honor. He put up with so much abuse for telling people that washing your hands would save lives. He was literally put into an asylum for advocating for safer hygiene practices where he was severely beaten and ultimately ended up dying from a gangrenous infection. This was years before Pasteur's experiments and the beginning of germ theory. He didn't know what was causing disease, but he knew there was something we couldn't see that was harming people. In 1968, Bob Beamon broke the world long jump record by nearly 2 feet. John Bois did a great segment on it as part of his The Bob Emergency video, https://youtube.be/-av8udgqgne?si=sign can 8kbjnqnrq_w. This secret is the foundation of the children's book, The Phantom Tollbooth. Ernest Shackleton took a ship into Antarctica, ship got crushed by ice, still brought every man back alive. When my father was a conscript, his comrade got extremely drunk and somehow got to the other side of the border. He got caught when he went into an Austrian village for a beer, and of course he couldn't order one. He was still very drunk, so he was just mostly confused. This was in the 80-foot Iron Curtain and all that jazz. To this day they don't know how and from where he got a horse and how did he manage to cross the border, and a river. Christopher Columbus thought he could sail to India by crossing the Atlantic. Everyone rightfully knew it was impossible because it would take longer than their ships could carry supplies for. But Christopher was a very lucky idiot. To be specific, he saw a map made by Paolo dal Pozzo Toscanelli that significantly underrepresented the circumference of the Earth and overrepresented how far Asia stretched to the east. Columbus basically fell for a meme and lucked into finding something there was otherwise no evidence of. The guy who built the Golden Gate Bridge. Bill Atkinson developed overlapping windows for the Apple Lisa because he thought he'd seen the Xerox PARC do it, so he figured out a way to do it and invented QuickDraw in the process. Basically, he figured out a way to only redraw the portion of the window that was actually needed. Turns out the Xerox GUI, Smalltalk, actually only had tiled windows, and if the windows did overlap, the system had to redraw the whole thing, which was very slow. The Xerox team were stunned when they saw that Apple had been able to achieve smooth overlapping windows. Atkinson later remarked that if he had known Xerox hadn't actually solved the problem, he probably would have given up, thinking it was mathematically impossible on a low-powered computer. Roger Bannister's 4-minute mile is pretty iconic. Audie Leon Murphy, June 20, 1925 to May 28, 1971, was an American soldier, actor, and songwriter. He was widely celebrated as the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II, and has been described as the most highly decorated enlisted soldier in U.S. history. 6. He received every military combat award for valor available from the United States Army, as well as French and Belgian awards for heroism. Murphy received the Medal of Honor for valor that he demonstrated at age 19 for single-handedly holding off a company of German soldiers for an hour at the Colmar Pocket in France in January 1945, before leading a successful counterattack while wounded. Francis Drake sailing under South America. When Tony Hawk was able to land the 900 for the first time. IIRC, the two Uruguayan Flight 571 survivors that went to get help /70 days in. The terrain/distance they covered would not have been attempted by professionals. https://wiki/of/wiki/discovery/microwave/background/background/radiation. Penzias and Wilson couldn't find the source of some interference on an antenna while working at Bell Labs, won a Nobel Prize for finding critical evidence of the Big Bang. At age 21, Tiger Woods won his first Masters by 12 strokes with a final score of -16. The survivors from Alive. The climb out was something nobody with any climbing experience would have ever attempted.